few less risks than you might do if you were out on your own. And very soon you'll find that you get used to it, and actually cycling with your children is not that different to cycling by yourself. The second tip is to make sure that you build your own skills and confidence first. So you need to be really confident cycling independently on the kind of routes that you'd be wanting to take your children on by yourself before you start thinking about taking your children. And one advice that we would give is, if you haven't already, to sign up for the free bikeability training sessions that the councils offer. So I'm not sure if everybody in this call is based in London, but the London boroughs all offer free cycle training through various different training providers. And outside of London, it's a bit more patchwork what kind of provision there is. But if you check your council's website for free cycle training, then hopefully you should be able to find something on there. The third thing then is to test the equipment without your child. So first time you get a child seat, or if you go for an option like a box bike or a trailer, take it out without your children first and just get used to how it handles and how it feels. And a really good tip that someone gave me was to take something out with you that weighs about the same weight as your child. So a sack of potatoes could work well, or fill up a rucksack with something and put it in the child seat, or put it in whatever you're going to be using to carry your child, and just see how it affects the steering of your bike, how it affects your, when you want to signal and take one hand off your handlebars. And it just gives you a chance to have a bit of a practice and build up your confidence before you go out with your child. Once you've done that, then if possible, you can also get some further training through the councils to actually go out with your child on your bike. So I'm a cycle instructor, and I offer this to people in the area where I live. I've taken out people with their kids in their child seats, and it just gives us a chance to check that the seat is set up correctly, and then to share the tips and ideas and things that we have for riding with children. So again, check your council website and see if that's something that they can offer. Then when you're ready to go out on your own with your child, don't do like a massive 20-mile ride or something for your first ride. Just start very small and build it up slowly. So you can start with, you could start off-road. That might be a good place to start if you're really not feeling confident, or go on quiet roads. Choose a time of day that isn't particularly busy, like avoid the rush hour, school drop-off times, and just go out and do a short journey, a mile or so, and just get used to it. And then from there you can build it up. It's also good to start on routes that you're confident with, routes that you know, rather than going on routes where you're less familiar. Then I would advise you to do all your safety checks. So when you get any new equipment, make sure that you read the manuals, make sure that you check that it is all set up correctly for the first time. If for any reason you're not clear about that, then you can always take it along to your local bike shop and just ask them to help you set it up, or just to check that it has been set up correctly. I have taught a few people where I've seen that their child seats are not on properly, and it wasn't particularly, it wasn't necessarily dangerous for the child, but it was going to be more uncomfortable for them to ride because it was sort of leaning off to the side, and they were finding it hard to balance. So just check that it has all been set up properly. The next thing is do some practice at home first. So a lot of the accidents that happen when people are riding with kids are actually not when they're actually riding, it's when they're getting the kid in and out of the bike. So trying to balance the bike and you're trying to get your kid in, it can be a bit tricky. So practice at home. Make sure that you feel confident and comfortable doing it before you go out and start doing it in front of other people. So I remember one of the first times that I was riding the cargo bike, which is what you can see in the picture, I was trying to put the stand on and lost my balance. I dropped the cargo bike and it landed on top of my son, who was riding his own bike, and he fell over as well. So it was really embarrassing, and I had to get someone to help me pick it up. So it was just because I hadn't practiced and I wasn't very confident putting the stand on enough. So if you can have a bit of practice at home, then again, it just builds your confidence and makes it easier for you. And the last thing is, the most important thing, of course, is make sure that you have fun, because really starting to cycle with your kids can be such a life-changing experience. It's really had such a big impact for me and my family, and that's what it's about, is enjoying cycling with your children and having that experience with them. So try to have fun, try to relax and enjoy it. We're now going to go through the main options for carrying kids on bikes, and I'm going to start with the one that probably is the most common one, and the cheaper end of the budget as well, and the one that probably comes to people's minds. And this is different options for child seats. So this is my bike, which I have. So my children are age 8, 4 and 1. So I ride with my 4-year-old and my 1-year-old both in child seats, and so I've got a front one and a back one attached to this bike. But we're going to go through the pros and cons of both options so you can think about which one might suit you. So front seats, first of all. So the approximate age range for a front seat is from around about 9 months up to 3 years, and it's the lower end of that age range is when your child can hold up their head independently and sit up unassisted, basically. So obviously that happens for children at different ages, but the average is around about 9 or 10 months. And then the upper end of the age range is it's based on weight, but it's also based on height. So the weight limit is 15 kilograms, which is more or less when children are around about the age of 3. But depending on your height, your child may become too tall before they become too heavy. So because you, in terms of like being able to lean over them to reach the handlebars and being able to see over them. So that just depends on your proportions and your child's proportions as well. Approximate price range is from £40 up to £150. There's a big range of different options that you can choose from, and there's a few popular brands that I've put down there. So pros and cons of front seats. So some parents prefer to have the kids in front of them where they can see them. Makes them feel safer knowing that they can have their children there between their arms rather than having them behind them. It's also, by having them in front of them, I think you kind of experience more of the ride together because you can chat and you can point things out as you're cycling along. It's also suited for more upright style bikes. So if you going back to this photo, so the bike that I've got here actually isn't a particularly upright one. You can see that the handlebars are sort of in line with my seat. So it was actually harder for me to use a front seat on that bike. Because I was leaning over more, like my knees were hitting her. I then ended up getting a new bike like this one where it was a bit more upright, and actually it was much more suited to having a front seat on it. You can use a front seat on a folding bike as well, like a Brompton, but there are some bikes that really won't work well for a front seat. So if you've got drop handlebars or you do have the lower handlebars, then it won't work so well with a front seat, or might not work at all with a front seat. So you do need to consider what bike you've got that you'd like to attach it to. Some people also find that the balance is less effective when the child is in front. I haven't particularly experienced that, but I have heard some people say that. And another benefit of having a front seat is that you can use it with rear panniers at the back. So by that I mean where you've got a rack at the back and you can have the pannier bags attached to it. I have a setup where, because I've got both seat, a front and a back seat, I've got panniers on the front. So you can see I've got a rack on the front wheel and I've got my 2 red pannier bags on there. So there are still options for carrying luggage even with a front seat. On the negative side of front seats, it can bang your knees. It can be difficult if you're shorter to reach over your child and to be able to see. So again, you need to make sure that it's the right kind of setup for you and your bike and your height. As you said, we can't use it on all bikes. It can affect your steering more than having a seat on the back. Also, front seats are not so good for napping. So again, going back to these pictures of the seats here, so you can see the seat on the back has got more sides that the child can lean against for napping, whereas the front seat, there's not really anywhere for the child to lean. Sometimes kids can end up falling asleep on your arms when they fall asleep. The seat that's in this picture is called a wee ride. That one's actually got a pad at the front. So that is one front seat that is a good option for napping. It just means that the child can kind of just lean forward and fall asleep and lie on that pad. But most of the seats don't have something like that, so it's not so good for napping. And then the other con, which may be quite a big one, is that there's less, you're not going to be able to use it for as long with a front seat because it's only up to 15 kilograms. So if you're going to be wanting to carry your child longer than around about age 3, then a front seat will only do you up to that age, and then you might need to consider getting a back seat. So I'm just going to quickly show you the seat that I've got. So this is my front seat. So this is a Yep Mini. And the reason that I went for this seat is a couple of things. One is it's very lightweight, but also it's because I would like to be able to switch the seat between different bikes. So I ride with this seat on my regular bike. My husband uses it on his bike, and also we use it on our cargo bike as well. So this one has a very simple mechanism where it literally just clicks into the fitting on the handlebars, and then you can just press the button and it clicks out again. So it's like literally a matter of seconds to be able to attach it on the bike, which for me was a really important consideration, because I'm always taking it on and off, so I don't want to be faffing around with different attachments and things. So that was the seat that I went for after quite a bit of research. I also have tried the one that you saw in the photos with the front with the pad thing for the kids to be able to lean on, but I didn't find that one as easy to use. It was banging my knees more. So often, as it is with these things, it's personal preference, and it's having the chance to be able to try it out and see which one you like first before you need to commit to buying one. So a bit later at the end, I'll be telling you about places where you can try out equipment and give these things a go. Okay, I'm going to move on to back seats now. So back seats are, so the lower age range is the same as the front seats. So your child needs to be able to sit up unaided before you can use it. Also, another consideration about minimum age range is helmets. So if you do want your child to wear a helmet, I haven't seen any helmets that would fit a child younger than 9 or 10 months in terms of being small enough to fit around. So that's also another thing that might make it difficult to cycle with your child in a seat like this, younger than 9 months. The back seats, you can carry children up to a heavier weight, so it's up to 22 kilograms, which is approximately age 5 or 6. I did cycle with my oldest son well into his reception year. He was probably about 5.5, and he was still sitting in that seat that you can see there. So it's definitely, you can use them much longer than the front seats. Price range is similar to the front seats, and there's a few popular brands that I've written down there. There are 2 main types of back seats. So there are the ones that attach to the seat post, which is the one on the left, and there's ones which attach to the rack. So this again is a thing of personal preference. So I've always preferred the rack mounted seats because I find them more stable. I find the seat post mounted ones move around a little bit more, and they're a bit kind of bouncy, but some people like that because they feel that it's sort of like better feeling for the child, and it helps the child to drift off to sleep. Another consideration is about your bike as well. So if you've got a smaller bike, then rack mounted seats will be better for a smaller bike. You might find it difficult to fit the seat mounted one onto your bike. So again, this comes back to knowing what bike you've got and being able to try out the options and just see which one you and your children prefer. Pros and cons of back seats. So back seats are suitable for a wider range of bikes and height ranges than the front seats. You can use a back seat if you've got drop handlebars. And you don't have to have so much such upright handlebars to be able to make it work because the seat is on the back. Your height also doesn't matter when you've got a back seat. You can use them for longer because they can take up to a heavier weight, so roughly up to age 5 or even maybe 6. They're better for napping. So this seat that I had here, this was a Hammax one. I actually love this seat because it was so good for napping. You can see it's got like sides that come all the way around, and my children were just really comfortable in that seat, and they would always just drift off to sleep. And they wouldn't, you know, often you see children in the back seats where they're like leaning forward like that, which people don't like, they do get worried about. It is actually fine if that happens, like there's nothing sort of medically wrong if they do lean forward like that, but this seat I just found particularly good in terms of its like angle and like how reclined it was, and just meant that the kids slept really well in that one. And it doesn't affect your steering when it's on the back. On the negative side, you've got your kids behind you, you can't see them. That depends on you. I actually consider that to be a positive, that I can't see my children because I can just get on with my riding. When they're in front, they're really right there. So again, it's personal preference. Some find that it affects the balance more on the back. I haven't found that. I've found it okay. And you can't use the rear pannier bags on the back, so you can't use your rack as well as the seat being on the rack, but you do have options because you can, as I've got there and I've showed you, can have the front pannier rack with the bags on the front, and you can also get a back rack extender as well where you can put your bags behind the child seat, so you've still got options for carrying luggage. So the seat that I went for is this one. So I've had quite a few back seats, but this is the one that I'm currently using. This is called a Yep Maxi. And again, the reason I chose this was based on the same reasons as the front seat. It was being able to switch it between bikes. So this one's got a really good mechanism at the back where you just twist it and it narrows and widens the fitting here to fit on different frame sizes. So within about 30 seconds, again, I can take the seat off and I can change it. And it's also like thinking about how easy it is to take seats on and off is also good in terms of thinking it's not just switching between bikes, but if, for example, you're going to take your child to nursery and then you want to leave the seat there so that you can then go off for a ride, or you've got your bike without having to have the child seat on your bike for the day. I mean, it's something I didn't think about when I bought the first seats, and I had some that were quite difficult to take on and off. So I do really appreciate having one now where it's easy to take it on and off. Okay, so there are also options for older children as well. So the seats that I've showed you previously are for children up to around about age 5. But if you've got children who are older that still need to be carried on a bike, then you do have these options. So the one on the left is a rear rack mounted seat. And an example of one of those is a Yep Junior. So whereas the other child seats are only suitable up to age up to 22 kilograms, this can carry up to 35 kilograms. Which is approximately age 9. A couple of things that you need to think about if you are going to go for a seat like this. One is having a suitable bike and a suitable rack. So the rack has to be rated for that weight, and you need to have something for your child to put their feet on. So you can see in the picture there's some foot pegs there, because otherwise their feet could potentially, if they're just dangling down, they can get caught in the wheels. So you might also want to think about having it's called a skirt guard, which just protects your children's feet from the wheel. The other option is one that mounts on the top tube. So on the right side, you can see there's a seat there. It just looks like a little mini saddle. And again, it's got foot pegs and your child just sits and balances on that. So that one doesn't carry as heavy a weight. That one's only up to age 22 kilograms, and that's similar to the weight that you would get on the back seat. But if you like having your child on the front rather than the back, then that gives you an option for being able to have your child on the front for longer. I've got one of these which I use with my daughter who's 4. And she started going on it when she was 3. So from when she was sort of sensible enough that I could trust her not to be messing around and to sit properly on it. And because she's in front of me, you know, I've got my arms around her, I'm not worried about her falling off, even though there's nothing to kind of strap her in or hold her in. So that's another good option as well, and something that you can consider. And then a couple of things if you're going for the bike seat option to think about. So I'd really recommend getting a double kickstand. So you can see the picture at the top there. That's the kickstand, which it just holds the bike stable while you're stationary. So when you're getting your child in and out of the child seat, it just means that you don't have to hold the bike as well as trying to lift your child in and out. And it just makes your life a lot easier. So that's they're quite cheap. You can get them for about £30. So that's something I'd really recommend. We've mentioned about the skirt guards. You can see a picture of that in the bottom one. So you can see it's just like a cover that goes over the wheel and means that your child's feet can't get stuck. That's only if you've got those seats without their own skirt guards. So in most of the child's, like the baby seats, they've got a piece of plastic that comes down that protects your children's legs anyway. So that's for the older seats. Consider if you've got a very lightweight bike, like the carbon kind of frames, they're not suitable for attaching anything onto them. So you wouldn't be able to have a child seat as an option if that's the sort of bike you've got. And just also to remember that if you do have a back seat, then make sure that you put any lights or reflectors on the child seat rather than the bike, because otherwise the seat will block them and you won't be able to see them. Okay, we're going to briefly cover this option now, which is tow bars and tagalongs. So this is for a slightly older age range now. The one on the left is a tow bar and the one on the right is a tagalong. So the one on the right, the one on the left, the tow bar, is where you use your child's existing bike and you attach it to your bike by lifting up the front wheel. Your child is still pedaling, but they are being pulled along by you and you're controlling the steering as well. On the tagalong, it's an actual, it's like all one unit, so you can't use it independently as a separate bike, but both of them got their own pros and cons. So they are, this type of option is suitable for approximately age 4 up to around about age 7 or 8 for the tow bars and a bit older for the tagalongs. The age 4, I mean, it's basically from when your child can be trusted to sit on the bike on the back where you can't see them obviously, and that they're not going to try and get off the bike, they're not going to fall asleep as well, and also that they can balance. So if they've been on a balance bike and they're good on their balance bike, then they should be all right on this, even if they can't ride a bike independently. If they can't pedal by themselves but they can balance on a balance bike, then they would be okay with this. The price range there's quite a big price range from around about £60 for the cheaper options up to about 300 or even more than £300 for the more expensive tagalongs. And there's a couple of the popular brands there for each of them. Pros and cons of these options. So this gives you an option for being able to take older children with you who can't yet ride independently. So they give you an older age range than the child seats. They're cheaper and they need less storage than other options for older children. So things that we're going to come on to in a minute, like the box bikes and the long tails, are in the thousands of pounds, whereas this is in the hundreds. Like less than 500, less than 300, you can get something, and obviously they don't take up much space for storage. Another advantage is that your children can develop their cycling skills while they're on this, so they're practicing their pedaling and just getting used to how a bike feels. And also with the tow bar option, so that's the one, well, that's like this one here that you can see in this photo. The bike can be detached and then your child can ride on their own bike, so you can use it to get somewhere, you know, if you don't trust your child cycling independently on the roads, for example, you can tow your child on the road part of the journey, get to a nice off-road space, unattach your child's bike, and then your child can go off and ride, and you can attach them again for the way home. So it just gives you a bit more flexibility and some options. On the negative side, some people find the tow bars unstable. So this is something that's particularly said about this one here on the left, which is called a trailgater. It can sort of veer off a little bit to the side, especially when you go around the corners. I've only tried it once or twice, I think, and I did find it quite unstable. I wouldn't use it for a long journey, and I probably feel more comfortable using it off-road rather than on-road. A more expensive brand like this one, which is called a Follow Me, has really, really good reviews. I mean, and it's more expensive. It costs about £200, but it's very stable. And people say that the tagalongs, which is the ones on the right, are also much more stable. If you've got the tow bar or the tagalong, you can't have a rear child seat as well. So if you've got 2 children that you're wanting to take with you, you're not able to have that option of having a rear child seat. So you'd need to have a front child seat to go along with a tagalong or a tow bar. And some of them can be quite fiddly to fit, and it can take quite a bit of time to get it on, whereas generally the more expensive they are, the easier they are to fit, the lighter they are, and just generally the better kind of quality it is, and the nicer the ride it's going to be for you. Okay, we're going to go on to trailers now. So I'm actually going to hand over to Khadija, who's one of Cycle Sisters' other trustees and ride leaders, and she's also an instructor. Khadija has ridden regularly with her kids in trailers, whereas I've only used them a couple of times. So Khadija will be best placed to give you more information about trailers.
Cool. Sarah, shall I share my screen, or are you okay to?
I can just move it on when you want me to.
Cool. Okay, so there's a few different trailers on the market, but they all kind of have the same sort of basic structure of this kind of cage that you can see in the picture there, and then two wheels at the back, and then a kind of bar that sticks out and attaches to your bike. You can cycle with one from birth to around 45 kgs. That's kind of the average weight limit of most trailers, but you'd probably be stopping before then, because that's quite a lot of weight. And then also in terms of starting from birth, you might need some extra kit. So people tend to start with trailers from about kind of 6 to 8 months, and then they use them from about till about kind of 3 to 4. But like I say, you've got that full range there. They usually come in a single or a double option. And most people tend to go for a double trailer because actually you can use that as a single trailer as well. And some of the trailers will have a seatbelt attachment that goes in the center of the trailer, so that if you are using a double trailer with just one child, you can still place that child in the center of the trailer, so it doesn't affect the center of gravity so much, rather than kind of them being off to one side. But you can also get trailers just for one child as well. I have had both, and although generally most people would go for the double trailer, there are advantages to having a single trailer, which I can go on to if anyone is kind of trying to make that choice there. So the kind of price range that you're looking at spending can range from around £100 your kind of starter trailer. That would be like an Aldi one, which is out of stock at the moment, but had really good reviews when it was available, and may well come out again soon, as everyone's trying to get more people cycling. And Halfords also do one for about £100, and those are double trailers. And then it can go up to about £900. So it really depends what you're looking for. And just to say, all those prices are prices new, so you can get them for cheaper than that if you're looking to buy secondhand. And all of my trailers that I've had 3, have been, 2 of them were secondhand and 1 was a second, so it was like a return that had gone back to the company, and it was basically as new. But you can save quite a bit of money looking on eBay or Facebook and trying to get yourself one that's secondhand, pre-loved. So there's a few different brands there mentioned. There's Cruiser, Burley, Thule, and as I mentioned, there's Halfords and Aldi as well. And another one that I had was the Wee Wide. Sorry, it just went for me for a second there. The Wee Wide, that was a single one that I had. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of trailers. So as I mentioned, you can carry up to 2 children in a trailer. So that has the advantage of over a bike seat, that you can fit two children. Although, you know, as shown in my bike seats, you can carry more than one child as well. But yeah, so you can carry a couple of children in your trailer. I mentioned that you can use them from birth. So if you're going to use a trailer from birth, you will need an additional attachment. You wouldn't put a newborn baby into the trailer as it comes out of the box, because that's the trailer, not the baby, because they wouldn't have enough support in the trailer. So you can buy these things called a sling, and each manufacturer will have their own one that you can fit into the trailer, and then that gives them some additional support. I have heard online people using a car seat in a trailer. I've never done it myself, and if you're going to do that, I would look at just getting some professional or expert advice, or looking at people who have done that before, to make sure that you know how to do that really safely, that it is really fully secure. But that might be an option as well. So we tended to use our trailer for each of the kids from about 6 to 8, about 8 to 10 months actually. Yeah, so once they kind of had good head control. So another advantage of trailers is that they are weatherproofed just by virtue of the design. So you don't need to get any additional kit to weatherproof them. They will come with a rain cover, and your child will be fully protected from the elements. Napping is also great in a trailer. So they just have that lovely comfort there, that they're in this seat, kind of fully supported all the way around. You can use a trailer with bike seats as well. So you can have your trailer attached to the back of the bike, and then also have a bike seat either in front of you or on the rear rack. So if you wanted to carry 2 or more children. So you could have 1 child in the trailer and 1 child in the bike seat, just to spread the weight out a little bit more. Or you could have 2 children in the back even, and a baby on the bike seat. Most trailers will come with a buggy attachment, and this is a really useful feature of trailers. So that will basically be like a spare set of wheels that you can attach to the front, and a little handlebar, so that you kind of get to your destination, whether that's home or cafe or shops, and then you detach the trailer from the bike, set it up for a buggy, which usually just takes a couple of quick adjustments, and you can then wheel the trailer along to wherever you're going. And you can also use most trailers in that way as a jogger. Some of the trailers will actually have an additional jogging wheel attachment, so that it's kind of better designed for jogging. But even if you didn't get that, you can still just use it as a jogger to kind of go jogging with, if that's your thing. You can use trailers to transport small children's bikes. So if you are cycling with your child and they're kind of just starting out on their cycling journey, or they can't really go the distance that you want, you can kind of carry their bike in the trailer. They can cycle as much as they're able to, and you can then take that bike when they've had enough and they're tired, put that into the trailer, and then you've got somewhere to transport your child for the rest of the journey with them inside the actual trailer itself. So that's a really useful feature. So that depends on the size of the child and the size of the bike. It's kind of more younger children, but it's really the younger children where you're kind of thinking more about how to manage in that way as well, in terms of the distance that they could do. So that's a really useful feature. Because you have this extra space within the trailer, children you can just carry a lot of extra cargo. So, I mean, I've mentioned entertainment and snacks, but you can also carry like your shopping in it, any extra stuff that you need. There'll usually be a compartment in the back where you can carry, it's like, we used to call it the trailer boot as opposed to the car boot. So we could fit loads of stuff in it. But when I had my youngest in the trailer for commuting to preschool, or well, not so much for preschool, but if we were going on a longer ride, she'd have like a little tablet with audible stories on it, and then her snacks next to her, and she was just fully set up to go. So it was a really nice little setup. A really, really brilliant advantage of trailers is that you can use them with different bikes. So we bought a separate hitch. So the hitch is like a little attachment that goes on the back wheel of your bike. It's kind of about that big. And you attach it to the rear wheel spindle. It's really easy to attach it. And then we kept the 2 bikes, my bike and my husband's bike, permanently with those hitches on. And then whoever was doing the school run that day could just attach the trailer to their bike. That's really useful to be able to switch up in that way. Okay, so a few disadvantages of trailers is storage. So naturally they are that much bigger, so it's going to take up a lot more space than a bike seat. They do kind of fold down, but then you kind of have to go through the hassle of then folding it down, putting it back up again. And even then it's still going to be bigger than a bike seat. So storage can be an issue. Some parents, as Sarah's mentioned, with the bike seats don't like having the children behind them, so that can be an issue for some people. It does lead to quite a different ride. You don't have the same kind of interaction, but as Sarah said, that can also be an advantage sometimes as well. So just to kind of bear that in mind. Sibling fights, that's an ongoing thing. I mean, basically, if you're going to have your 2 kids sitting next to each other anywhere, there's going to be fights. So if you're going to have 2 children sitting next to each other in a trailer and it's that kind of little contained space, there's going to be fights. But the flip side of that is, an older child might, depending on the dynamics, help the younger child with like opening a wrapper of something or something like that. So it can kind of go 2 ways. But yeah, just to bear that in mind, that can really be an issue. And when you're really trying to concentrate on cycling, if you've got 2 kids behind you bickering over something, then that can be a little bit of a distraction. As your children get older, then it can be a bit harder work to pull the trailer, because obviously you're just going to get that extra weight. If you've been using a trailer fairly regularly, then you're going to feel that a little bit less, because you kind of built up the muscles a bit, but you will obviously naturally get to a point where it's like just that much extra work to to pull the trailer along as your children get older. So then you will be looking at some of the other options that Sarah's been talking about, like the tow bars and the tagalongs and other kind of attachments that might come into their own when the children get older. And then finally, you just need to get used to riding just slightly differently. So with the trailer attached to your bike, you're just that much longer and that much wider. And because it's behind you, it's sometimes easy to forget that, especially if your child is young and you're not kind of pulling a huge amount of weight. You're not necessarily going to feel it in terms of the weight, but you have to just always remember that you're a longer vehicle and you're a wider vehicle. So when you're riding along, so for example with turns, you need to kind of go a little bit, so for a left turn, for example, you need to go a little bit extra to the right to be able to make that turning circle a bit bigger. When you're riding along, your primary position is going to be a slightly different position to that when you're a solo bike, because you need to make sure that your trailer is also got a good distance from the bikes and from the parked cars, as well as your own bike. Yeah, I think that's everything on trailers, Sarah. So I'll hand back to you.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Khadija. That was really useful. Okay, so we've got two more types of bikes to cover before we move on to the Q&A. So the next one is box bikes. So these are the traditional cargo bikes that you see everywhere in Holland and Denmark and these kind of places. And more and more people are looking into getting these now in the UK as well, because they really, especially with the electric version, they really can be used as a car replacement. You can carry so much stuff in these bikes, and children up to quite a high age range as well. So the advantage of the box bikes, so like the trailers, you can also use them from birth. You can get a attachment which fits into the base of the box, where you can just put your normal car seat and attach that into it. So in the photo there, you can see that I've got my baby and my, she was probably about 3 or how old was she? Yeah, 2 or 3 there. So I had my baby from when he was 3 weeks old in that attachment in the car seat. It's got suspension as well, which helps with the bounces as you go over any speed bumps or anything like that. And I mean, he was just really, really happy in there. He would always just go off to sleep, and that was kind of what he was used to. He went in that much more than he ever went in a car. So that's a real advantage of the box bikes. You can also use them up to around, so it's around about age 8 or 9, but it depends on your child's height. The thing that limits it really is when you want the rain cover on, that you can see in the picture, because they just become too tall for it and they can't fit in. But I do have friends who have taken out the benches which are in the box, so that the child just then sits on the floor, and then you can have a child up to a bigger age range. You've got two main options when it comes to the box bikes. So you get some which have got 2 wheels and some which are 3 wheels. The 2-wheel ones handle much more like a normal bike, and they're a bit narrower. The 3-wheel ones are that bit wider, but some parents like them because it means that they don't have to balance. So you don't have to put your foot down when you're stopping at junctions and things. You can just keep your feet on the pedals and then start going again. That it really is personal preference, and you need to try them and you need to see which one you feel comfortable with and which one you like. We ended up going for the 2-wheeler one because I wanted to do longer distances on mine, and I like the fact that it handles more like a normal bike, and I've not had any issues where I haven't been able to fit through narrow gates or anything like that. I think because it's narrower. With a trike, there may be some places where it's more difficult to get through. So the type of journeys that you're going to be doing is something you need to consider, as well as just how you like the feel of the bike. So price range, so at about a minimum you're looking at around about £1,000 for a box bike, and they go up to 6,000, possibly even more than 6,000 for the ones that are the top of the range. If you're going to get e-assist, so that's making it into an electric bike, then that adds about £1,500 onto the price. So that's something to consider. I mean, when it comes to, so obviously this is expensive, but when it comes to thinking about it, you know, you've got to weigh up whether how much you're going to use it. If you compare the price to the price of a car, obviously it's not that expensive if it means that you can manage without a car or manage without a second car. Also, the resale value is very high, especially on the better brands. So when you come to sell it a few years down the line, you know, you're going to make quite a bit of your money back. And also just considering that really it's a lifestyle choice and it's an investment in something for you and your family. Like I would make the decision to get a cargo bike a million times over for the amount of fun and enjoyment that we've had out of it. So these are all things to think about when you're weighing up, you know, is it something that you want to invest that sort of money in? Some of the popular brands for cargo bikes, so Urban Arrow, that's one of the ones that is top of the range. That's more like £5,000–6,000. Babbo, which is the one that I've got, that's down the cheaper end. Gazelle and Backfeets are also other options as well. So pros and cons. So massive pro of a box bike, you can carry multiple children. I've had 5 children on my box bike by having 4 in the box and 1 on my blue front seat, which also attaches to my cargo bike. If you're going to be carrying more than 3 children, the 3-wheelers are probably better for that rather than the 2-wheelers. Another big advantage, as we talked about, is you can use it from birth with the right car seat adapter. Similarly to trailers, you've got the weatherproofing and napping options. I mean, having it, like, it really is like their own little entertainment center in there. It's amazing, especially when you've got the rain cover on. They're all like cozy in there with all their books and their drawing and toys and food and everything. Like, it's a complete mess, a bit like a car by the time you get to the end of your journey, but they're really, really happy in there. And yeah, we do get the sibling fights, but we also get a lot of, like, it's been really good for the sibling bonding, I think, as well. You can carry a lot of stuff in a box bike, so not just stuff that you can fit in the actual box, like underneath the benches and things, but also you can have panniers on the back. We've got panniers called backies where you can attach anything. So we've had our children's bikes attached to the panniers. We've had a Brompton, a folding bike attached to it. We've got a basket on the back as well. So like, when I say it's a car replacement, like, you really can carry everything that you need to carry. If you are thinking of it as a car replacement, I would definitely recommend thinking about getting the electric assist version, because it just means you're going to be able to do longer journeys, you're going to be able to carry heavier weights, and you're going to be more comfortable. It is quite hard work without electric assist. So the cargo bike itself weighs about 60 kilograms, and then you've got your children's weight on top of that as well, and any stuff that you're carrying. If you're doing short journeys, like say you're just doing the school run, it's like a couple of miles flat journey each way, then you could be okay without e-assist. If you live in a hilly area or you're going to do longer journeys, then definitely think about the e-assist. You've got your children in front of you, so that's a lot of parents like that. It's, you know, much more interaction, enjoying the journey together. And then on the negative side, so storage is an option that people worry about with box bikes. Most people don't have garages or anything like that to keep it in. We keep ours out the front of our house, so we just got a motorbike like grounds bolt concreted in front of our house, and we lock it up there, and it's been okay there. You do also, in some areas, councils allow you to lock them on the street to a lamppost, as long as you're not blocking the pavement. So that's another option that you can look into. We've talked about the costs. They are expensive, but you need to weigh that up. We talked about the non-e-assist as well. Another con is that you know, cargo bike is a cargo bike. So if you, with one of the advantages of bike seats is that you can take the bike seats off and you can leave them at nursery, and then you've got your own bike back to go off and do whatever it is you want to do. With the cargo bike, you know, you haven't got that option. And they're less flexible than other options because they're so big and heavy. You can't do things like take them on trains. So that might be something as well, that, you know, if you are using it as a car replacement and you're going to want to go further afield, you might want to think about bike options, which mean you can travel on public transport with your bikes, so that you can do things like go on holiday with your bikes or go out for day trips and things, and that wouldn't be possible with a box bike. I just put a couple of pictures in here of the newborn options because I know we had someone on the call who was interested in this specifically. So the one on the left is the picture of the car seat adapter in a box bike, and the one on the right is the sling that Khadija was talking about, which is the option that you can use in a trailer. So both of these options are suitable from birth. Okay, this is our last option now that we're going to talk through, and then we'll move on to the Q&A. So there's a category of bikes which are called longtails and tandems. So a longtail is basically a regular bike which has got a longer rack at the rear so that you can fit more stuff on the back. So the bike that you can see in the picture there is a longtail. It's a brand called a Velo, and you can carry 3 children on that one because you've also got one of those top tube mounted seats, those little saddles on the front as well. So that gives you the option to carry a 3rd child. So longtails and tandems, age range, you can use them from, it's the same as a child seat because when your child will fit in the child seat, that's how you would carry a younger child on a longtail or a tandem. You'd attach a child seat, so either a front one or a rear one, depending on the model. So again, it's from when your child can sit up unaided. And there's no upper limit on some of the bikes. You can carry adults on them. So on this bike here, I could have an adult sitting on the cushion at the back because the bike can carry a capacity up to 200 kilograms, which is, if you think that I'm about 60 something kilograms, so you could easily fit another adult on the back and be within the weight capacity for the bike. With the tandems, you can see a picture there. Tandems are bikes where you've got more than one person pedaling. So that's a triplet bike that you can see in the picture where there's 3 sets of pedals and only one handlebar works, so only one does the steering, the others are just for balance, but all of the people can pedal on that bike. On that particular bike, my children chose not to pedal, and that was very hard work and not something that I'd probably try again actually because it didn't have electric assist. But if you have children who are keen and wanting to kind of be part of it a bit more, then a tandem might be something that you want to consider. Price range is similar to the box bikes. So again, the lower end of the range is going to be the ones without electric assist, going up to the ones, the higher end, which are all electric. Popular brands, for the longtails we've got Tern, Velo and Uber, and for tandems we've got Cirque and Underwater are 2 different options. Pros and cons of this type of bike. So like with a box bike, you can carry multiple children. So with a triplet tandem or with the type of longtail that I've got, you can carry 3 children. Otherwise, most of them are for 2 children. And also just to consider that these bikes are built to carry children in this way. So a bike like this, compared to having an option of having 2 child seats, like a front and a rear seat, it's going to be much easier and more enjoyable to ride a bike like this. It's more stable. Riding a regular bike with 2 child seats is definitely doable, and I do it, but I tend to do it for shorter journeys because the bike is heavy and it is a bit hard work, especially when you're trying to go up a hill. With a tandem, as we said, your children are pedaling, so they're also contributing, developing their cycling skills, they're being active. Another big advantage of this sort of bike is that it takes up a lot less space than a box bike. So you can, if you've got like a side alley, you can fit it down your side alley. You can take it in for your front door, which obviously you can't do with a box bike. So if you've got less storage space, then this is a real advantage. It does handle more like a normal bike. So when I'm riding my longtail bike, even though I'm carrying 3 children on it, I can't really notice that I've got 3 children on it. I do, like, it's heavy and you can notice the weight, but in terms of like affecting the balance and things, I don't really notice that I've got 3 extra people on my bike. So that is an advantage. These are more flexible than box bikes. You can take them on trains, you can take them on more different sorts of terrain than you can with a box bike. I tend to use this bike a bit like a buggy. So I have my youngest one in the child seat on the back, and when we get somewhere, I get the older 2 to get off and they go for a walk, and I just push the bike along like a buggy and keep my little one on the back. So I don't barely ever use a buggy. So it just gives you more options for different sorts of trips and different activities. And this one has got more longevity than a box bike because you can have, like we said, up to 200 kilograms on the bike, so up to an adult. So if you've got older children who you want to carry, if you've got secondary school age children even, then this is something that you could consider. The main disadvantages of these sort of bikes, so one is there is no weatherproofing. So if it's really raining or it's really cold, then you have to think about how you're going to wrap up your child, keep them dry, keep them warm. They're much more exposed on this sort of a bike than in the box bikes or the trailers. Even like with the child seats, one thing that I do with the back seat is I've just put a buggy rain cover over it. So that is, my child is protected from the bad weather on the back of that bike, but it's not so easy to do with these long tails. We talked about the costs. It is an expensive option, which can be a disadvantage. You also can't use these bikes from birth, so this is more from 9 or 10 months when your children can sit up by themselves. And like with the box bikes, the non-e-assist versions might be harder work in hillier areas or for longer journeys. So that's something to consider when you're making a decision about which one to get. So that is a very quick summary of all of the main options that there are for carrying children. We can dive into a bit more detail with any questions in a sec, but I just wanted to share these couple of links for more information. So the first one is, if you're on Facebook, then definitely join the Family Cycling UK group. This is an amazing resource where there's people all over the country who are all doing family cycling, and you can post any question that you like and you'll get loads of responses. You can also use the search function and look for things. I mean, I posted 2 questions in like the last 4 days about things, and I got like really useful responses, and it was really quick. So definitely recommend that. CycleSprog is a online site which was started up by a family who have 2 children, and they had found it quite difficult to find information online about all the different options, so they decided to start their own website and put everything in one place. That's also a brilliant resource. You've got everything, you know, like top 10 trailers for 2020, and how to choose whether you're going to have a rear seat or a front seat. So that's a really, really useful source of information. When you come to buying stuff, the Holland Bike Shop is a good place. They import stuff from Holland. The prices are all quite reasonable, and you can get a much wider range of products there than you can from like standard bike shops. So that's something to look at. I've just put down shops that are in London because that's where I'm based, and those are the ones that I'm familiar with. So if you're outside of London, then you just need to have a look and see what places are selling these equipment near to you. But in London, we've got Carry Me Bikes and Hackney Family Cycling Library. So this is a good option because they do a loan scheme, so you can try equipment before you buy it. So they're both based in Hackney, but they anywhere in London, you know, they serve London wide, so you can as long as you can get to them to get the equipment. Then you've also got Flying Dutchman Bikes and London Green Cycles are 2 retailers of family cycling equipment, so seats. Well, all of the options that we've talked about today, you could purchase from those. And with those shops, you can go there, you can try out the different options, you can do test rides so that you can have a go and test it out before you make any decisions. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing now. So we'll come on to any questions now that anyone has got. And if not, then I've got some questions that came in advance as well. But would anyone like to start with a question? Have there been any questions in the chat?
No.
I have a question, Sarah and Khadija. Just in terms of Hackney Library, are they still operating the loan scheme? Do you know?
So they are open at the moment. So I don't know about the library, but Carry Me Bikes is open at the moment, and they are still offering their services. So I think they're doing a delivery to your house actually now.
Okay.
So if you get in touch with Alex on their email address that's on their website, that's the best way to get in touch with them and to organise it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So Anissa, what kind of option are you thinking about?
I really liked the front seat, but then when you came onto the cons and said not good for short people, that instantly ruled it out. So I'm now looking at the back option, but obviously just with the being able to nap, and he's still quite young, 2 and a bit. So that, I think that's the one I'm veering towards at the moment.
So for napping, if I wasn't going to if I didn't want a seat that I could like really easily switch between my various bikes, I probably would have gone for a brand which is called Hammocks, and the model that's called Hammocks Caress. So this one is probably the best back seat for sleeping, because it reclines. So there's like a thing that you can twist and you can adjust how upright or how reclined it is. And people really love that as an option, especially if you're going to be like, you think that your child's going to be napping quite a bit in the bike. So that's maybe one to look at and see whether they've got that in the library, and you can borrow it.
And how is it to switch them around if they don't have the thing that you mentioned, the like kind of, I'm assuming it's something like an ISOFIX, which you kind of just press in and press out?
So all of the attachments are, yeah, they're all a bit different.
Okay.
So some of them, like the one that I've got just attached, so you have a regular pannier rack on your bike, like it's not a special pannier, it's just any old pannier rack, and it just like it clamps onto the pannier rack, so you just have to screw and unscrew it,
right,
to tighten or loosen it. Other ones that I've had a seat where it comes with its own pannier rack, so you have to attach that pannier rack, and then it's just like a thing that like slots in and out, so it's not too hard to take it on and off. So it depends what you've, like if you've already got a pannier rack on your bike and you don't want to buy a new one, then you want to try and look for a seat that will fit onto that existing rack.
I don't think I do, but that is really helpful.
The other thing as well I was going to say about sleeping, I should have brought it upstairs with me, but you can get something called a Sandifini Sleepy Fix, I think it's called, which is basically, it's a bit like a neck pillow, like an aeroplane neck pillow thing. And it's this one is like, this particular one comes recommended because it just seems to work particularly well, because it's in 2 pieces. So while your child is awake, you just have it open, and then when they fall asleep, you just connect it at the front here, and then they sleep on the pillow like that, rather than doing that leaning forward thing. So if you end up going for a different sort of child seat than the Hammocks one, but you still want to think about that for sleeping options, then you could look into those sort of pillows as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, all right, well I think we'll wrap up then, and if anybody would like any specific advice or has anything else that comes to mind after the call, then you can just get in touch with us on our Facebook. If you are based in Walthamstow, Chingford, Redbridge or Hackney, then get in touch with us as well, because we've got WhatsApp groups for those areas where we've got like cycle groups in each of those places, and on WhatsApp you can ask questions and get any advice and things that you need, and we're also on Instagram as well, so we can share, if we haven't shared already, we can share all those links with you afterwards. All right, thank you very much everybody for joining. Assalamu alaikum.